Hi all, welcome once again to Code Zone KE. Today we are going to do practicals on variables. We are going to touch on the data types. So let's get coding. So this time around, we are not going to use the previous class. This is what we started with in the introduction part. Remember, we are putting everything under one package. Once you open your notebooks, you'll find that the class, the project that you created is still at the projects pane. All right. So we're going to create a new Java file, and this is what you do. Right click, you have new Java file. It gives you this, then the class, just give the class name. It will go to the package that already YouTube class. You can see the package name is where it's going to be located. We said in the previous video that all the identifiers, when you are naming them, make them descriptive, and for a class name, always learn to start with a capital letter. So I'm going to say variable. I'm going to save it as a variable class. I'm going to delete this. I don't need those comments that are appearing there. Remember, we said that main method when we were talking on the structure of any Java code, we said there's only one main thing that a compiler looks for, and that is the main class. Now, if you look at the class that you have declared, it's missing one thing, and the major thing that it will use to execute. If you right click on the variable class and say run file, you realize it will give you an error. Reason being, there is no main. The compiler does not know where to begin execution. So we're going to declare our main, simply public static void main. That is it. You're going to, when we'll be talking about arrays, I'm going to touch on what is the meaning of this string square, the two square bracket and args. It's as simple as that. And again, if you run this file again, it becomes executable. Reason being, we've already declared and shown the compiler where to begin. So it always begins at the main. What is the purpose of today? We are going to say, we're going to find the area of a rectangle. Now, for an area of a rectangle to work, what do we need? We need two things. We need the length and the width. Those are the two variables that we need. So normally, and this is me, but also this is just on my side. Also, maybe you'll find a better way to do it also once you get Java and everything. I'm not a fan of bytes. I'm not a fan of short. I'm not a fan of long, because normally the number or the ranges, when I'm using int, I don't need to remember the ranges. When you're using byte, you need to know it is from which range to which range. And sometimes when you're doing a mathematical computation, you might end up needing more than 128, which will make it to throw an error, because you stored it in a byte, which can only take up to 128. So normally I'll use for int when I'm using an integer, a numbers without decimal, and I'm going also to use double only. Reason being, I mostly forget when I'm declaring float. I normally forget the final F that must come with a float. So I'm going to use double. But again, do not be limited as I am. You can use all the numerical data types that we've learned in the previous video. So I'm going to introduce my int and say length is equals to 7. Remember, we said the equal sign here is not the mathematical equal sign. This is what we call an assignment operator. What we have done, we have created a variable that we've called length and assigned a value that is 7. Okay, so we can have again into width is equals to 8. I can just have it as that. If I say system.out.print and I print the length, remember we said when you declare a variable, you access it with a name. The minute you access length, what happens? It gives the value. If I run this class, you realize it gives me the 7. Reason being, we created a variable we're calling 7. We are storing a value that is 7. We created a variable called length and created a value that is called 7. Again, if we do the same for the width, you realize again it will print 7. it will print 7 and 8. Okay, so variables are used to store data. Now, what happens again if I take the length and now declare it this time with a 9? You realize it's the length now is replaced, the 7 is replaced with a 9. So I'm going to copy paste this one on this point. So if I run again this class, you realize my length now is no longer. I can have it as length 1. Allow me to do this. Length 1. And I can have it as length 2 here, so that you can be able to see the differences. If I right click and run, you realize the length 1 is 7, length 2 is 9. Again, another way you can run a Java file is on the run, and then you run file. It still does the same way as right clicking. So anytime you see me going here, I'm trying to do the same thing as right clicking and running. So when you declare a different number, when you say length again and say length is equals to 9, it replaces the 7 with the 9 that you have declared, you have assigned to it. So the 7 is replaced with 9. If you change the width again, the width is changed. I want to talk a little bit on something that you call, before we talk about that, maybe we can actually now compute int area of a rectangle, or we can say area of rectangle is equals to, I call it with length times width. Now, to avoid, if you checked and saw what I did some minutes ago, I was declaring many system.out.println. To avoid that, the string has something we call string concatenation. String concatenation is where you combine several strings into one. Now, the concatenation symbol here is a plus. I need you to differentiate the two things. When you're working with a plus and it's a numerical data types, you're talking of addition. I repeat that statement again. When you are working with numerical data types and you're using a plus, it is not a string concatenation. It is the normal addition sign. But when you have two strings that you're combining, plus is indicating as you're combining the two string. What am I saying? You're saying string.out.println, sorry, not string, system.out.println. We are saying, I can decide to say the width is, once you put it inside double quote, that's a string. Remember, we talked about strings on our previous on the data types video. Then you add and say the width here is width. This is not an addition, because this is a string. It is going to concatenate or simply put it in the same string. So I can say the width is that, and plus again, because this is one string. You've concatenated with a width. You're concatenating with, so that's why we are adding this plus with, and say the length is, and then again I concatenate length, and simply say, and concatenate it again with, and say, and the length is the area is, and I concatenate with the area of a rectangle. Now allow me to right click and run. You realize now it gives, in place of a width, all right, in place of a width, it places the value of the width. In place of a length, it places the value of the length. In place of area, it computes the area and places the value at this point. So what we have done here is string concatenation. If I do this again, step by step, it is system.out.println. So if I did just this, if I copied this and I have it here, the width is, it will give me 8, okay? So the other addition here is you're concatenating width again with the length. All right, so this is what we call string concatenation. The addition sign, the plus sign here is not for plusing, it is for addition. But the same sign, if for example we do this, allow me to copy this one, and we say we are adding, we are just adding the two numbers with the addition. Addition is, somebody else will do this, length plus width. Okay, I'll put it on a different bracket so that I can have this in a bracket. Okay, so if I run this, if I right click and sorry, not debug, sorry for that. If I run this file, you realize it has added the length and the width. It has not concatenated. That is what I'm telling you. There's a difference between this plus being here, because this is a string, adding another value to the string. So all of this one is taken as a string. But when you encounter two integers and you have a plus, this is the normal mathematical addition that is happening together. So you can actually now even do, you can have a small subtraction. We can talk about, we can actually have what? The subtraction of two numbers. We can have subtraction of two numbers here. So I'll call it again int num1 is equals to 10, and then you can have int, we can actually use double at this point. You can use double num1. I can have 10.098, and I can have double num2 is equals to 8.90, something like that. Now, I want to do something here. If I do int subtraction here and say is equals to num1 minus num2, if I say is equals to num1 minus num2, it gives you an error. Reason why: double is on a higher grade than the integer. You cannot store a double in an integer. But if I had this one as an int, and I remove this, and I had this one as an int, and then come at the subtraction and say double, automatically this becomes right, because double, it's on a higher scale than integer. You can store integer inside a double, but you cannot store a double inside an integer. Always remember that. So we can have our subtraction here and simply say system.out.println, and you can talk of the subtraction is equals to, you concatenate it with the subtraction that you have done. So again, right click and run your file. You're able to see the subtraction between 10 and 8 is 2.0. So this is as simple as that. So I throw a challenge at you to do division, to do, what have we not done? We can do division, we have done subtraction, we have done addition. Yes, you can do division, and also try to find the area of a circle and the perimeter of a circle with the radius. So once you do that at the comment section, remember to put your code and let us see what you have done. Thank you. Like and subscribe as always. Thank you.